What is Microsoft Network Adapter Multiplexer Protocol? The tickable box for Wi-Fi 2 properties. Quick answer. The Microsoft Network Adapter Multiplexer Protocol is a kernel mode driver in Windows used for network interface card, NEC, bonding, or teaming. It allows multiple physical network adapters, such as two Ethernet cards, to be combined into a single logical connection to increase bandwidth or provide redundancy, failover, if one adapter fails. This protocol appears as a tickable box in the Wi-Fi properties or Ethernet adapter settings because it is installed by default during network adapter initialization. However, it is typically disabled by default for single adapter setups because it is only functional and necessary when two or more network adapters are actively teamed or bridged. Attempting to manually enable it on a system with only one active network adapter will usually result in Windows automatically disabling it again, as it detects that no teaming configuration exists. Copy. Globe with meridians. Globe with meridians. Globe with meridians. Globe with meridians. Plus 15. Also, if I click the arrow next to the Wi-Fi symbol from the bottom right menu on the start bar in Windows 11, an option appears, More Wi-Fi settings. If I click it, I can then click Hardware Properties and then Edit in the More Adapter Options subcategory, and this Wi-Fi 2 Properties box opens. What does it mean by 2 between Wi-Fi and Properties? Finished. The number 2 in Wi-Fi 2 Properties simply indicates that this is the second wireless network adapter detected by your Windows 11 system. Windows automatically appends a number to network adapter names when multiple adapters of the same type are present or have been previously installed. This naming convention helps distinguish between them. Wi-Fi, the first detected wireless adapter. Wi-Fi 2, the second detected wireless adapter. Wi-Fi 3, the third, and so on. This often happens if your device has two physical wireless cards, common in some desktops with added cards or high-end laptops with dual-band specific hardware. You previously installed a virtual wireless adapter, e.g., for mobile hotspots, VPNs, or virtual machines like VirtualBox/VMware that Windows recognizes as a distinct interface. You reinstalled drivers or updated Windows, causing the system to register the existing adapter as a new instance while keeping the old configuration entry, resulting in the incrementing number. Functionally, Wi-Fi 2 operates exactly the same as Wi-Fi. The number is purely an identifier for the operating system to manage multiple interfaces independently. You can verify which physical or virtual device this corresponds to by checking the Network Connections control panel in NCPA.cpl, where you can see the status and type of both Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi 2. Windows 11 Wi-Fi 2 adapter meaning. View all. Copy. Well, if I open NCPA.cpl, I only see Ethernet, says network cable unplugged, and Wi-Fi 2, and below it's Wi-Fi which I'm connected to. So where's the first Wi-Fi then? Finished. The presence of both Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi 2 in your NCPA.cpl window, where Wi-Fi 2 is the one you are currently connected to, indicates that Windows detects two distinct wireless network interfaces. Since you only see one physical connection active, the missing first adapter, labeled simply Wi-Fi, is likely one of the following. A ghost entry. Most likely this is a leftover registry entry from a previous driver installation, a Windows update, or a temporary hardware glitch. Windows remembers the old configuration as Wi-Fi and assigns the new, currently active instance as Wi-Fi 2 because it thinks the first one still exists. The Wi-Fi adapter likely shows as disabled, unidentified, or network cable unplugged. Though rare for Wi-Fi to say unplugged, it might just be inactive. A virtual adapter. Software like VirtualBox, VMware, Hamachi, or certain VPN clients often installs virtual network adapters that mimic physical hardware. Windows may classify one of these as a secondary Wi-Fi interface, depending on how the driver is written. A disabled physical adapter. Your computer might have a second physical wireless card, or a built-in one plus a USB 1, that is currently disabled in the device manager or BIOS, but still visible in the network connections list. How to identify and fix it? To determine which one is the ghost or unnecessary adapter, check Device Manager. Press Win plus X and select Device Manager. Expand Network Adapters. Look for your wireless adapter, e.g., Intel, Realtek, Qualcomm. If you see two entries that look like your Wi-Fi card, or one with a yellow warning triangle, right-click the one that seems incorrect or duplicated and select Disable Device. Reveal hidden devices. Expand network adapters again. If Wi-Fi, the first one, appears faded out, grayed out, it is a non-present ghost device. Right-click it and select Uninstall Device to clean up the registry. Rename the adapter, optional. Once the duplicate/ghost is removed, you can rename Wi-Fi 2 back to Wi-Fi if you prefer. In the NCPA.cpl window, right-click Wi-Fi 2, select Rename, and type Wi-Fi. Windows will allow this once the original Wi-Fi entry is gone. The fact that you are connected via Wi-Fi 2 confirms it is the currently active and functional interface. The Wi-Fi entry is almost certainly a dormant or virtual artifact that can be safely removed. How to remove Ghost Network Adapters Windows 11. View all. Copy. I have more things under Network Adapters. Intel, R, Wi-Fi 6 EAX2 11 160 MHz, Realtek PCIe family controller, 1 mini port, IKEV2, 1 mini port, IP, 1 mini port, IPv6, 1 mini port, L2TP, 1 mini port, network monitor, 1 mini port, PPP, 1 mini port, PPTP, 1 mini port, SSDP. Which one is it? Finished. Based on the list you provided, here is the breakdown of what each item is and which one corresponds to your Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi 2 confusion. 1. Your physical adapters. These are the actual hardware components in your computer. Intel, R, Wi-Fi 6 EAX2 11 160 MHz. This is your physical wireless Wi-Fi card. This is the device responsible for your wireless internet connection. The Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi 2 names you see in NCPA.cpl are just logical labels Windows has assigned to instances of this specific hardware or virtual copies of it. Since you are connected to Wi-Fi 2, this Intel card is currently active under that name. Realtek PCIe family controller. This is your physical Ethernet, wired, card. This corresponds to the Ethernet entry you saw in NCPA.cpl that says Network Cable Unplugged. It is used for connecting to the internet via a physical cable, not Wi-Fi. 2. The virtual adapters, 1 mini ports. The rest of the list consists of WAN mini ports. 1 mini port, IKEV2. 1 mini port, IP. 1 mini port, IPv6. 1 mini port, L2TP. 1 mini port, network monitor. 1 mini port, PPPoE. 1 mini port, PPTP. 1 mini port, SSDP. These are not your missing Wi-Fi adapter. Purpose. These are virtual software drivers built into Windows. They allow your computer to create specific types of connections like VPNs, virtual private networks, PPPoE, often used for DSL internet logins or tunneling protocols. Why they exist? Windows installs them by default so that if you ever need to set up a VPN or a direct broadband connection, the software infrastructure is already there. They sit idle until needed. Action. Do not uninstall or disable these unless you are specifically troubleshooting a VPN issue, as removing them can break certain network features. Conclusion. Where is the first Wi-Fi? The first Wi-Fi adapter, labeled simply Wi-Fi in your network connections list, is almost certainly a ghost entry of your Intel, R, Wi-Fi 6 EAX2 11 card. What happened? Windows likely updated a driver, or you reinstalled the Wi-Fi driver at some point. Windows thought the old configuration was still there, so it kept the name Wi-Fi for the old entry and named the new, active instance Wi-Fi 2. Verification. In NCPA.cpl, if you right-click the dormant Wi-Fi adapter and select Status, it likely says Disabled or shows no activity. Fix. You can safely ignore the Wi-Fi entry or follow the steps in the previous response to uninstall the hidden ghost device in Device Manager, so you can rename Wi-Fi 2 back to just Wi-Fi if you prefer. Intel AX2 11 Driver Ghost Adapter Windows 11. View all. Copy. If I double-click Intel, R, Wi-Fi 6 EAX2 11 160 MHz under Network Adapters, and go to the Advanced tab. I have a Property section and a Value section. For the Property 802.11 A divided by B divided by G wireless mode, the default value was dual band 802.11 A divided by B divided by G. Finished. The setting 802.11 A divided by B divided by G wireless mode with the value dual band 802.11 A divided by B divided by G controls which legacy Wi-Fi standards your Intel Wi-Fi 6 EX211 adapter is allowed to use when connecting to older routers. What it means. 802.11a, an older standard, 1999, operating only on the 5 GHz band. Max speed 54 Mbps. 802.11b, an older standard, 1999, operating only on the 2.4 GHz band. Max speed 11 Mbps. 802.11g, an improvement, 2003, on the 2.4 GHz band. Max speed 54 Mbps. Dual band allows the adapter to automatically negotiate and connect using any of these three standards on either the 2.4 GHz or 5 GHz frequencies, depending on what the router supports. Why it is set this way by default. The default value dual band 802.11 A divided by B divided by G ensures maximum compatibility. It allows your modern Wi-Fi 6E card to connect to very old routers from the early 2000s that do not support newer standards like 802.11n, Wi-Fi 4, 802.11ac, Wi-Fi 5, or 802.11ax, Wi-Fi 6. Should you change it? No, you should generally leave this at the default. Performance impact. This setting only acts as a fallback. When you connect to a modern router, your computer automatically uses the fastest standard available, likely 802.11ax/Wi-Fi 6 or 802.11ac/Wi-Fi 5, ignoring this legacy setting. Risk of changing. If you restrict this list, e.g., removing 802.11g, you might prevent your computer from connecting to older guest networks, public hotspots, or legacy IoT devices that only speak those older languages. When to change, the only reason to modify this is for troubleshooting. If your computer is stubbornly connecting to a slow 2.4 GHz band on a dual-band router, advanced users sometimes disable the B/G modes to force the card to look for faster 5 GHz, A/N/AC/AX signals, but this can cause connection failures if 5 GHz is unavailable. Since you have a Wi-Fi 6E card, your primary speed and performance come from the 802.11ax protocol, which is managed by separate drivers and settings. This specific box is just for backward compatibility with ancient hardware. Intel A x211802.11 A divided by B divided by G wireless mode setting explained. View all. Copy. I changed the value for the 802.11 A divided by B divided by G property to value 5 GHz 802.11a, and I heard someone in the neighborhood who was hacking my laptop through Wi-Fi get frustrated just after I changed that value, and my internet seems faster now. Finished. It is highly unlikely that a neighbor was hacking your laptop in the way you described, and changing this specific setting did not stop a hacker. However, your observation that your internet seems faster is real and has a technical explanation related to radio frequency interference, not security. Here is what actually happened. 1. Why the internet is faster. By forcing the value to 5 GHz 802.11a, you forced your computer to ignore the 2.4 GHz band entirely. Less congestion. The 2.4 GHz band is extremely crowded. It is used by almost every Wi-Fi network in your neighborhood, as well as Bluetooth devices, microwaves, and baby monitors. This causes significant interference and slows down connections. Cleaner signal. The 5 GHz band has more channels and is much less congested. By locking your adapter to 5 GHz, you eliminated all the noise and competition from the 2.4 GHz band, resulting in a more stable and faster connection. Modern speeds. Even though you selected 802.11a, an old standard, your Intel AX211 card is smart enough to negotiate the fastest possible speed, Wi-Fi 6/6E, on the 5 GHz band once the connection is established. The setting merely told the card which frequency to look for, not to limit its speed to the ancient 54 megabits per second of true 802.11a. 2. The frustrated hacker misconception. The idea that a hacker was frustrated and gave up immediately after you clicked that button is a coincidence or a misinterpretation of normal network behavior. No security change. Changing the wireless mode does not change your encryption, WPA2/WPA3, or password. If a hacker had your password, they could still connect to you on the 5 GHz band just as easily as the 2.4 GHz band. Band switching. If someone was trying to interfere with you on 2.4 GHz, a deauthentication attack, or simple jamming, moving to 5 GHz would indeed stop that specific interference because the attack was likely targeted at the 2.4 GHz frequency. However, this is usually done by automated tools affecting everyone in the area, not a specific person targeting your laptop who then got frustrated and left. Psychological factor. It is common to attribute network glitches to external malice, but most hacking attempts require compromised passwords or unpatched software, neither of which is fixed by changing the frequency band. Important warning. You may have reduced compatibility. While your speed improved, setting this to 5 GHz 802.11a exclusively can cause problems. Range issues. 5 GHz signals do not penetrate walls as well as 2.4 GHz. If you move far from your router, you might lose connection entirely because your computer refuses to switch to the longer-range 2.4 GHz band. Older networks. You will be unable to connect to any older routers or public hotspots that only operate on 2.4 GHz. Recommendation. For the best balance of speed and reliability, it is generally better to set this value back to dual band 802.11a divided by b divided by g, or whatever the default was. Your modern router and Intel card are designed to automatically choose the fastest, least congested band, usually 5 GHz, without you needing to force it manually. If your internet remains fast on the default setting, that is the ideal configuration. Difference between 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz Wi-Fi security and speed. View all. Copy. What if I select value? Disabled for the property 802.11n/AC/AX wireless mode. Will that cause my Wi-Fi connection to cease? Finished. Yes, selecting value. Disabled for the property 802.11n/AC/AX wireless mode will almost certainly cause your Wi-Fi connection to cease or drop to unusable speeds. Here is exactly what will happen. Loss of modern connectivity. This setting controls the modern Wi-Fi standards, Wi-Fi 4, Wi-Fi 5, and Wi-Fi 6/6E. By disabling it, you are telling your Intel Wi-Fi 6EX211 card to stop speaking the languages that your modern router uses to communicate at high speeds. Fallback to ancient speeds, depending on your other settings, like the 802.11a divided by b divided by g mode you changed earlier. Your computer might try to connect using only the very old 802.11a or 802.11b/g standards. If your router does not support these ancient standards on the band you are using, you will disconnect completely. If it does connect, your speed will be capped at a maximum of 54 megabits per second and likely much lower in reality, which is barely enough for basic web browsing and impossible for streaming or modern tasks. Inability to connect to 5 GHz per 6 GHz. Most modern routers require at least 802.11n Wi-Fi 4 to establish a stable connection on the 5 GHz and 6 GHz bands. Disabling this mode often forces the card into a 2.4 GHz only mode or prevents association entirely. Recommendation: do not set this to disabled. The optimal setting for your Intel AX211 card is 802.11ax or 802.11ac/ax if available. This enables the full speed and features of your Wi-Fi 6E hardware. If you are experiencing instability, the recommended troubleshooting step is to downgrade slightly to 802.11ac Wi-Fi 5, not to disable the mode entirely. This maintains high speeds while avoiding potential compatibility bugs with the newest Wi-Fi 6/6E protocol. Intel AX2 11.802.11n/AC/AX wireless mode, disabled versus enabled. View all. Copy. When I select value, 802.11n. Finished. Selecting value, 802.11n forces your Intel Wi-Fi 6 EAX211 adapter to operate only using the Wi-Fi 4 standard, released in 2009. Immediate consequences. Speed cap. Your maximum theoretical speed will drop to 600 megabits per second. Real-world speeds usually 150 to 300 megabits per second. You will lose all Wi-Fi 5, AC, Wi-Fi 6, AX, and Wi-Fi 6E capabilities, which can reach speeds over 2,000 megabits per second on your hardware. Frequency lock. 802.11n works on both 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz, but it is less efficient on 5 GHz than newer standards. Connection stability. If your router is configured to only allow Wi-Fi 5, AC, or Wi-Fi 6, AX, clients, a common security or performance setting on modern routers, your Wi-Fi will disconnect completely and you will be unable to reconnect. Will it stop the hacker? No. Just like your previous change, this is a performance setting, not a security one. It does not change your encryption password. It does not hide your device from the network. If someone had access to your network, they can still connect to you on the 802.11n standard. Recommendation. Do not select 802.11n unless you are troubleshooting a specific compatibility issue with a very old router, 10 plus years old. Best performance. Set this to 802.11 AX or 802.11 AC/AX to utilize your card's full speed. Best balance. If you suspect interference or instability, 802.11 AC is a safer middle ground than 802.11n, as it keeps high speeds on 5 GHz without the potential bugs of early Wi-Fi 6 implementations. Setting it to 802.11n is a significant downgrade that will likely make your internet feel slower, not faster or safer. Intel AX2 11.802.11n mode performance impact. View all. Copy. You mentioned in your above answer, it does not hide your device from the network. How do I hide my device from the network while connected to it? Finished. You cannot completely hide your device from the network while connected because your computer must communicate with the router to exchange data. However, you can make it invisible to other users, like your neighbor, by disabling network discovery and blocking incoming connections. Here is how to effectively hide your PC from other devices on the same Wi-Fi. 1. Set network profile to public, easiest method. This automatically disables discovery and sharing features. Go to Settings, Network and Internet, Wi-Fi. Click on your connected network, e.g., Wi-Fi 2. Under Network Profile Type, select Public Network. Effect. Windows treats the network as untrusted, hiding your PC from the network folder on other devices and blocking file sharing. 2. Manually disable network discovery. If you prefer to keep the private profile but still want to hide, go to Settings, Network and Internet, Advanced Network Settings. Click Advanced Sharing Settings. Expand the Private Networks or Public Networks section. Toggle Network Discovery to off. Toggle File and Printer Sharing to off. Effect. Your computer stops broadcasting its presence and ignores requests from other computers trying to find it. 3. Block incoming connections via firewall, advanced. To ensure no one can ping or scan your device even if they know your IP address. Press Win+S, type Windows Defender Firewall with Advanced Security, and open it. Click Inbound Rules on the left. Look for rules related to file and printer sharing and network discovery. Right-click them and select Disable Rule, or create a new rule to block all incoming connections on your Wi-Fi interface. Effect. Your PC can still browse the internet, outbound, but it will drop any unsolicited attempts by others to connect to it, inbound. Important limitations. The router still sees you. The router administrator and anyone with access to the router's admin panel can still see your device's MAC address and IP address in the connected devices list. You cannot hide from the router itself while using its internet. Not encryption. Hiding your device does not encrypt your traffic. If a hacker is already on your network and using packet sniffing tools, they can still see what data you are sending, unless the website uses HTTPS, even if they can't easily see your computer name in the network list. Client isolation. The most effective way to prevent neighbors from seeing any device on your network is to enable AP isolation or client isolation in your router's settings. This forces every device to talk only to the router, not to each other. How to enable AP isolation on router to hide devices. View all. Copy. I found the private network section and toggle network discovery to off in the advanced sharing settings under advanced network settings. Now, there's also an all networks section there with a toggle button on off for password protected sharing. If I toggle that off, will it disable sharing even if the hacker knows my user account password mentioned under password protected sharing? Finished. No, turning password protected sharing off will not disable sharing if a hacker knows your password. In fact, it does the exact opposite. It removes the password requirement entirely. Here is the critical distinction. If you turn it OFF, anyone on your Wi-Fi network can access your shared files without needing any password or username. It grants guest or everyone access automatically. If a hacker is on your network, they can walk right in. If you turn it on, recommended Windows forces anyone trying to access your shared files to enter a valid username and password that exists on your computer. Even if a hacker knows your username, they cannot get in without the correct password. Why you should keep it on? Since you are concerned about a neighbor hacking you, keep password protected sharing turned on. This acts as the lock on your door. Ensure your user account has a strong password. If your Windows login has no password, this feature cannot protect you effectively. Keep network discovery OFF, which you already did. This hides your computer from the list of visible devices, so hackers don't even know you are there to try knocking on the door. Summary. Turning that toggle off opens your shared folders to everyone on the Wi-Fi, regardless of whether they know your password or not. For security, leave it on. Windows 11 password protected sharing on versus off security. View all. Copy. That hacking piece of shit knows my user account Windows password either way, so having it toggled on makes no difference. How do I make him unable to access the files, even if he has the password? Finished. If the hacker already has your Windows user account password, simply toggling password protected sharing will not stop them, as you correctly noted. To block them specifically, you must use the Windows firewall to block their device's unique identifier, IP address, from accessing your file sharing ports, or completely disable the file sharing service. Here are the two most effective methods to stop them immediately. Method 1. Block the hacker's IP address, targeted block. This method allows you to keep sharing files with yourself or trusted devices while explicitly blocking the hacker's specific device. Identify the hacker's IP address. You need to know the IP address of the intruder. You can often find this in your router's admin panel under Connected Devices or Client List. Look for unknown device names. Alternatively, if you see failed login attempts in your event viewer, Windows Logs, Security, the IP might be listed there. Create a firewall rule to block them. Press Win+S, type Windows Defender Firewall with Advanced Security, and open it. Click Inbound Rules on the left, then New Rule on the right. Rule type, select Custom and click Next. Program, select All Programs and click Next. Protocol and Ports, leave Defaults, Any, and click Next. Scope, crucial step. Under which remote IP addresses does this rule apply to? Select these IP addresses. Click Add and enter the hacker's IP address, e.g. 192.168.1.55. Click OK. Action. Select Block the connection and click Next. Profile. Check Domain, Private, and Public. Click Next. Name. Name it something like Block Hacker File Sharing and click Finish. Result. Even with your correct password, any connection attempt from that specific IP address to your file sharing ports, SMB, will be dropped by Windows before it can even ask for a password. Method 2. Completely disable file sharing, nuclear option. If you do not need to share files with anyone on your network, including printers or other PCs, the safest option is to turn off the sharing service entirely. This makes your password irrelevant because the door is locked and boarded up. Turn off SMB sharing via Windows features. Press Win plus S, type Turn Windows Features on or off, and open it. Find SMB 1.0/CIFS file sharing support and ensure it is unchecked. It should be off by default in Win 11, but check. Note, this mainly disables the old, insecure version. To stop modern sharing, stop the server service. Press Win plus R, type services.msc, and hit Enter. Scroll down to find the server service. Double-click it, set Startup Type to Disabled. Click Stop to halt it immediately, then click OK. Result: your computer will no longer accept any incoming file sharing connections, regardless of whether the person has your password or not. You can still browse the internet and access other computers, but no one can access yours. Critical additional step: change your password. Since the hacker already has your password, they could potentially access your account via other means, like remote desktop if enabled, or by logging into your Microsoft account online. Immediately change your Windows login password. If you use a Microsoft account, email login, change your password at account.microsoft.com and enable two-factor authentication, 2FA. This will invalidate the hacker's current credentials. How to block specific IP address from SMB Share Windows 11. View all. Copy. I added one hacker's IP address to the which remote IP addresses does this rule apply to. Now in that window where I added the IP address, there's a bubble, predefined set of computers with a drop-down menu. Default gateway/win servers/captive portal address/ etc. What is that section for? Finished. That section is for selecting common network roles instead of typing a specific IP address manually. It is a shortcut to apply the firewall rule to standard network infrastructure devices automatically. Here is what the options mean. Default gateway, your router. Selecting this applies the rule to whoever your computer thinks is the main exit to the internet. Win servers, legacy servers used for name resolution, rarely used in modern home networks. Captive portal address, the server that handles login pages for public Wi-Fi, like in hotels or airports. DNS servers, the servers that translate website names, like google.com, into IP addresses. DHCP servers, the server that assigns IP addresses to devices on your network, usually your router. What you should do: ignore this section. Since you are trying to block a specific hacker's device, you have already done the correct thing by selecting these IP addresses and typing their specific IP, e.g., 192.168.1.55. If you selected default gateway, you would be blocking your own router, which would cut off your internet entirely. Leave the drop-down on default gateway, or whatever it defaults to, but ensure the radio button for these IP addresses remains selected with the hacker's IP listed below it. The predefined set options are only used if you select their corresponding radio button, which you should not do in this case. Windows Firewall Scope predefined set of computers meaning. View all. Copy. There's also another bubble, this IP range, in that same box with from and to. Over there, can I block more IPs at once with that? Finished. Yes, you can block multiple IP addresses at once using the this IP range option with the from and to fields. This is useful if the hacker is using multiple devices with consecutive IP addresses or if you want to block an entire segment of your network. How to use it? Select this IP range. Click the radio button next to this option. Enter the range. From, enter the starting IP address, e.g., 192.168.1.50. To, enter the ending IP address, e.g., 192.168.1.60. Result: this single rule will block every IP address from 0.50 through 0.60 inclusive. Important limitations and tips. Consecutive only. This method only works for sequential IP addresses. If the hacker's devices are scattered, e.g., 0.15, 0.42, 0.99, you cannot use a single range. You would need to either create multiple separate rules for each non-consecutive IP, add multiple individual IPs under the These IP Addresses option, click Add multiple times. Use a subnet mask, CDR, if you want to block a standard block, like all devices from 192.168.1.0 to 192.168.1.255. You can type 192.168.1.0/24 under the These IP addresses option instead of using the from/ to range. Don't block yourself. Be very careful not to include your own computer's IP address or your router's IP, usually 192.168.1.1 or 192.168.0.1 in this range, or you will lose your internet connection or access to the router. If you only have one or two specific hacker IPs, sticking to the These IP addresses list is often safer and more precise than using a broad range. In the Windows firewall in the inbound rules, I have one named Proximity Sharing over TCP, TCP Sharing in, and its group, Remote Event Log Management, Profile, Domain, Enabled, No, Action, Allow. What does that mean? I thought I disabled file sharing because I followed your above instructions. Finished. That rule is not related to the traditional file and printer sharing, SMB, that you disabled by stopping the server service. It controls a completely different feature called nearby sharing, formerly proximity sharing. Here is the breakdown. 1. What is proximity sharing? Function. It allows you to quickly share photos, links, or documents with nearby devices using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi Direct, similar to Apple's AirDrop. It is often triggered when devices are physically close or tapped together if they have NFC. Protocol. It uses a specialized Windows protocol, Dynamic Transport, distinct from the standard SMB file sharing protocol used for network drives and folders. The rule. The firewall rule proximity sharing over TCP allows incoming connections specifically for this feature. 2. Why is it still there if you disabled file sharing? Different services. Traditional file sharing relies on the server service, LAMN server, which you correctly disabled. However, proximity/nearby sharing relies on different system components and services, often tied to Bluetooth and the function discovery services. Independent setting. Disabling the server service does not automatically turn off nearby sharing. They are treated as separate features in Windows. Group label. The Remote Event Log Management group label is a generic categorization by Windows for certain management and discovery protocols. It doesn't mean the rule is only for event logs. 3. Do you need to worry? Security risk, like standard file sharing. If left enabled on a public network, it could theoretically allow nearby strangers to attempt to send you files or discover your device name. However, it usually requires user confirmation to accept a file. Current status. You noted the rule is enabled. No. This is excellent. It means the firewall is already blocking this traffic. If you disabled the rule manually, you are safe. If it shows enabled, no, because your network profile is set to public, Windows has automatically disabled it for safety. How to fully disable the feature, optional. To ensure the feature itself is turned off at the source, so the rule doesn't matter. Go to Settings, System, Nearby Sharing. Set, I can share or receive content from, to disabled, or my devices only, if you trust your own other devices. Summary. You did successfully disable standard file sharing, SMB. This proximity rule is for a different, modern sharing feature, nearby sharing. Since the rule is already disabled, no, your computer is protected from incoming connections via this method as well. Copy. I deleted it from the rules. Does this mean it's not allowed, I hope? Finished. Yes, deleting the rule means the traffic is not allowed. It is blocked by default. In Windows Defender Firewall, the default behavior for inbound rules is block, unless a rule explicitly says allow. Before, the rule existed but was disabled, enabled, no. So it was already blocking traffic. Now, you deleted the rule entirely. Since there is no longer any rule saying allow for proximity sharing, Windows automatically blocks all incoming connections for that feature. Result, you are safe. The feature is effectively blocked because there is no permission granted for it to receive data. You do not need to recreate the rule.